Hey guys, this is Hayden from Headspace Films, and today I wanted to do something a little different for the channel. Now, in the wake of such reboots and sequels such as Alien Covenant, The Predator, and now Terminator Dark Fate, I wanted to take a look back at the classic films that started it all and dive into what made these older films so great and what's missing from their modern day counterparts. Now, Terminator 1 and 2, alongside movies such as Predator and Aliens, were a big part of my adolescence, and in hindsight probably influenced not only my taste in cinema, but eventually my career. Even watching these films in 2019, they still give me the same feeling they did back when I first watched them as a wide-eyed youngster, except maybe with a bit more nostalgia. However, even without the nostalgia, these films still hold up today. Granted, some of the practical effects are a little obvious, I'm looking at you T1, but what they lack in the limited technology of the time, they more than make up for in their storytelling, world building, and characters. And that's what makes these films so great. Let's look at Terminator 1 and 2 for a minute. This unique story of time travel, fate, and technology, which seems so far-fetched on paper, but in the movies was kept grounded enough that it felt like this could happen, especially looking at the technological landscape in 2019. Even with the T-1000, it wasn't overdone to the point that it took you out of the movie. And maybe that's what's missing nowadays. It seems in every current action film the explosions need to be bigger, the car chases more destructive, and the stunts more extreme. Now this can make for an entertaining movie, but as a movie you want to connect with, it can be a bit hard to get past all that. There's so much pressure to make things bigger, grander, newer, that the things that matter like the story and the characters suffer. Looking back at not only the first two Terminator films, but the early Alien and Predator films, it's almost like the limitations of technology fostered greater creativity. The use of practical effects, for example, is, for me, a lost art. The miniatures, stop motion, animatronics and creature suits used in these films create a physical presence on screen that no CGI can match. Even when CGI was used, like in T2, it was used sparingly and only to bring an otherwise impossible creation like the T-1000 to life. I mean, just take John Carpenter's The Thing and its 2011 prequel. John Carpenter's remake of The Thing from Another World was, and still is, one of the greatest examples of practical effects ever put to film, and the movie itself, one of the best horror films of all time. The prequel, on the other hand, famously ditched its practical effects for CGI, and the film bombed both financially and critically. While other elements may have brought the film down a touch, it was undoubtedly this poor judgment by the filmmakers that cost this film dearly. So why is CG so heavily used? Well, despite being a sign of the times, CGI does offer greater movement with characters, creatures and vehicles, as well as more immersive landscapes, which seems to be the appeal for modern filmmakers. The ability to be completely unrestricted with your ideas is a great advantage as a filmmaker, and is what has allowed visionaries like George Lucas to complete their works, for better or worse. But sometimes things are better left simple. Looking back on our last example, the final incarnation of the Thing in John Carpenter's classic is more or less completely stationary during the final fight, and yet still seems so much more frightening and threatening than the over-animated stomping monstrosity in the 2011 prequel. Keeping on the sci-fi alien theme, you can take the Independence Day films as another glaring example. Alongside the Xenomorph Predator and the Thing, the aliens from ID4 are one of my favourite practical creature designs, and yet are only fully shown in quick flashes and close-ups, allowing them to keep a sense of mystery. Compare that to the disappointing sequel where they had the now CGI aliens walking around in full view, shooting laser guns like common foot soldiers, completely losing any mystery and menace they may have had. CGI though is only part of the problem. The main issue comes from the motivations of the filmmakers themselves. Films like The Terminator, Alien and Predator were made because someone had a vision, a story to tell. At the time they felt new, fresh, even groundbreaking. But as franchises grow and ownership rights shift, so do the motivations for making more. Suddenly it's not about telling a story, but about cashing in on a bankable name. After all, filmmaking is a business, with potentially billions of dollars at stake. Unfortunately, this way of filmmaking seems to have become more and more relevant in this day and age, with most seemingly unable to capture the magic of the originals despite the leap in technology. Now that's not to say great films aren't still getting made. I mean, Drive is my favourite movie of all time and that came out in 2011. But that was a great original character movie and the action was grounded and realistic, relying on zero CGI. And that's what I have an issue with. It's not CGI in itself, it's the over-reliance on it. Jurassic Park is a fantastic film that was able to blend CGI and practical effects almost flawlessly, but it did not rely on CGI. It only used it to enhance the effects. The problem is modern blockbusters in their pursuit of the bigger and grander rely on CGI to make everything bombastic enough to appeal to the mainstream audience. But I feel people are starting to catch on and are wanting something a little bit more from their CGI fests. People want to see great stories. They always have. And maybe it's time we got back to that. In saying that though, I shouldn't assume too much. Instead, let me throw it to you guys. Do you think there's an over-reliance on CGI? Have modern films, especially the remakes, reboots, and sequels, lost the ability to tell and expand on a great story? Are great characters getting lost in the overblown action scenes? Let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.